So this is the last message here that I'm going to be bringing on the family. And so this morning, we're going to talk specifically about children again, but in a different way. So in Ephesians 6, Paul gives some specific instruction to children. So in Ephesians 6:1, he says, "Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with a promise, so that it may be well with you and that you may live long on the earth." He says the same thing here in Colossians 3. In Colossians 3, verse 20, dealing with the family again, he says, "Children, be obedient to your parents in all things, for this is well-pleasing to the Lord." So, seems pretty clear, right? Children, obey your parents. Who's he speaking to? When he says children here, who's he talking about? Is it all children? Is it little bitty kids? Is it grown-up kids? Well, I think we can apply it to all children. Specifically, all the children, I guess I would say, in the home. And so I think Paul's instruction here is not just for just little ones, but teenagers still living in the home. Really, I would say all those who are still under their parents' authority. Now, there comes a time, right, where we're no longer under the authority of our parents. I think we talked about that when we talked about getting married, moving out, cleaving unto your wife. You know, you've left that authority structure and you've begun your own. We could also say perhaps there's a time there where you move out, you're on your own. And so, again, you've left that authority. But certainly while you're in the home, you're under the authority of your parents. And so Paul gives clear instruction here to obey. This is also should be taken an admonition to the parents as well, right? What does this say to the parents? You should expect obedience. That should be an expectation. That should be required. And again, that begins, as we said, with the training, nurture, discipline of our children. That begins when they're teeny tiny, when they're crawling around, and then as they begin to walk and so on. It begins then, the expectation, and it continues. This is a command. And so for those children who are converted, this is a command from the Lord to obey. Do you want to please the Lord? Obey your parents. It's real simple. To be under the authority of your parents is a safe place. It's a good place in a Christian home. And so to put yourself willingly under that authority is a good thing. It's pleasing to the Lord and it's safe for you. So, a clear command there. How serious is this command? Have you ever thought about that? Children, obey your parents. Are we given any other instruction in the Bible about obedient or disobedient children? Well, we are. So let's read a couple of these passages. First one here is in Proverbs. Proverbs 30, verse 17. The seriousness of obedience. "The eye that mocks a father and scorns a mother, the ravens of the valley will pick it out, and the young eagles will eat it." Seems like some serious things there. Those who would scorn their father and their mother. And I think that scorning would include disobedience. We have in Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy 21, 18 through 21. If any man has a stubborn and rebellious son who will not obey his father and his mother, and when they chastise him, he will not even listen to them, then his father and mother shall seize him and bring him out to the elders of the city at the gateway of his hometown. They shall say to the elders of his city, "This son of ours is stubborn and rebellious. He will not obey us. He is a glutton and a drunkard." Then all the men of his city shall stone him to death. So you shall remove the evil from your midst, and all Israel will hear of it and fear. That's a serious thing, right? It's a serious thing back in the day. Now, this seemed to be a grown, or at least older for sure. But there was obedience expected. And then in Romans, this is mentioned again. Now, I've always just thought, how could this be? But in Romans 1, 29 and 30, Paul says, now we'll begin in 28, and just as they did not see fit to acknowledge God any longer, God gave them over to a depraved mind to do those things which are not proper, being filled with all unrighteousness, wickedness, greed, evil, full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, malice. They are gossips, slanderers, haters of God, insolent, arrogant, boastful, inventors of evil, disobedient to parents, without understanding, untrustworthy, unloving, unmerciful, and so on. I mean, that's a terrible list of things. And here this disobedience to parents is thrown in there. Do we ever think of it in such a serious way? Murder, slander, evil, turning their backs on God, all those things that Paul mentions there. And then he throws in disobedient to parents. So it's a serious thing. It's not just a light matter that we're talking about here when we're talking about being obedient to parents. God expects it. God requires it. And as parents, we should require it. We should expect it. If you don't, then you're failing. You're failing as a parent. You're not doing what God's called you to do. If you're not obeying as a child, you're in clear rebellion, not only against God, your parents, but you're in rebellion against God. You have set yourself up as an authority rather than who God has put as an authority over you. So, it's a serious matter. It is a sin of rebellion. That seems to be the big issue there in all of those things, is they were rebellious. They'll not have anything. They'll not have any other rule over them. They will only rule over themselves. And of course, that was the sin of Israel, right? They were a rebellious and stiff-necked people, would not submit to God. And so, the same is a disobedient child. So, what is obedience? We've talked about this already when we talked about what we should expect as parents of our children. Obedience is not simply an outward act. It is that. That's part of it. But we'd also said true obedience comes from the heart, right? It's a desire to do what's right. It is doing what we're told with a good attitude and with a submissive attitude, with a heart to obey. And so, you children, that's what obedience is. If you want to please the Lord, if you want to do what is commanded here and obey your parents, then you must do it with a good heart, with a good attitude, with a desire to submit to them. That's true obedience. Now, does that mean if you don't have the heart, then you shouldn't listen to them? No, you should still listen. You should still do those things, but know that that's not the right way. That's not what's pleasing to the Lord. The Lord expects, demands this true obedience from the heart with a good attitude. And so parents, again, that's what should be expected. It's not okay for you to tell your kids to do something and for them to go and do it kicking and screaming with no consequences. That requires discipline, requires a spanking, whatever. Okay? So know that. Again, obedience is commanded and required by God, and it should be required by you as well. We talked about all that. So, I mentioned already, when does this end? When you're outside the home, when you're outside the authority of your parents. We also saw here in these other passages that these were old. There seems to be, again, some requirement of older children. We're not talking about little kids. We're not just talking about babies. And so, you're under your parents' authority. You should obey. That should be expected of both parents, and you should willingly obey as an older person living under the authority of your parents. I mentioned this already, but just because you reach a certain age, just because you're 18 and you're legal, that doesn't mean you no longer have to obey your parents while you're under their authority. Again, what is that? That's just rebellion. That's just you doing your own thing. You want to live your own life. That's wickedness. That's rebellion. That's sin. Why? Why is this a good thing? I wrote down a couple things here. Why does God command or require this? And these are in no order of importance. But it teaches submission. Teaches our children to submit to authority. That is a good thing. That they understand they are under authority. There is someone above me. I am not top dog. I am underneath this authority. We as parents, we should model that. That whole idea of being under authority. Whose authority are we under? We submit to God, right? We are submitting to God. He is our authority. And we should reflect that. We should show that as we live in our home, as we do these different things. Our children should see. Dad does what he does. Mom does what she does because someone, God, has told them to do it this way. They're not just doing it because this is what they want to do. They're doing these things because God requires it of them. And so they're submitted to this authority. And that's why they think I should submit to their authority, because this is the order that God has placed. And so we should demonstrate that in our own lives as parents. That we're not our own authority. We are under the authority of God, the authority of Christ. So they should see that in us. And so it's good for them to see it. It's good for them to know these things as they move on in life. That they are able and willing to submit themselves to the authority in the home, and then the authority as they move out into the world. Again, there is authority in the world. You have laws, you have rules, you have bosses, and all of these other things. If you never learn to submit to that authority, you're going to have a hard way to go. It's going to be a difficult life for you. And so we as parents should be teaching that at home and preparing them to go out into the world in that way. This begins, again, at an early age. But one reason why this authority is good is it should teach our children, and we should be instructing them that we do this, we expect this because we love them. This is a loving thing. All right? So they should know, Mom and Dad make these rules. Mom and Dad tell me to do these things, not just to be hard, not just to make my life miserable, but because it's what Mom and Dad think is best. As a child, if that is not how you view your parents, then you are viewing them incorrectly. Now, obviously, we're talking here in a Christian home, right? If we're out in the world and we've got these wicked, evil parents, then yes, they do things just to be mean, no doubt. But in a godly Christian home, when you are in that home, you should have the understanding that mom and dad do these things, mom and dad require these things because they love me. Are mom and dad always right? No, they make mistakes. But it's not, they're doing these things because they hate you, because they want to cramp your style, keep you from having fun, and all these other ideas that come into our heads. Even if mom and dad are wrong, what's your response? Obedience. It's not okay for you to decide mom and dad are wrong, so I'm not obeying that one. That's not obedience. That's not honoring to God. So, your children should know why you do what you do. For their love, because of your concern for them, your desire for their good. That should be evident, and you should show that and explain that. I remember telling my kids that. I know this isn't, I know you don't enjoy this. I know this isn't what you want. I know you'd rather do this. But we're not doing that. I think this is best. And they can hopefully receive that and continue on in obedience and love. But that's the type of relationship we want to have with our children, that they know we do these things for their good. Again, when they're young, I don't know if I said this ever, but when they're young, they don't need an explanation for everything. That 2-year-old running around doesn't need to know why he can't do what you tell him not to do. But as they grow up and they become reasoning and they're like, why? Why is this, Dad? Why are you saying this? There's nothing wrong with a conversation. Well, this is why, buddy. This is what I think. This is why we're doing that. He can receive it or not, but at least he knows, hey, Dad has my good in mind. Dad loves me. Dad, I can talk to Dad about these things. So that's a good and a healthy way to develop a relationship with your children. Explaining those things when it's appropriate, when the time comes, at a good age. Along those same lines, let me say this, and because I don't know if I said this or not, but I've thought of it in a couple of different times. As parents, our desire, I know we talked about relationship. Our desire is to foster a good and healthy relationship with our children, to be able to communicate with them, for them to share their concerns with us, and to be open and honest with us. And this is one way that we do that, is explaining to them, I understand your frustrations, I understand what you don't like here, and that's, I understand that, but it's not, we're still going on here. Again, that helps with relationship. But what we want as parents, what we want to foster in our children is when they do move out, when they are gone, we still want that type of relationship with our children, that we can go to them, they can come to us. We can still have open lines of communication. We can still speak into their lives. Hey, why are you doing this? What's going on here? Why did you make this decision? This doesn't seem very good. Doesn't seem wise. Doesn't seem profitable. What's going on? This all begins early on. And so foster that relationship so that as they move out, as they're no longer under your authority, you still have opportunity to speak to them. And them knowing they can come to you for any advice and any help and any concern that they may have. So, obedience is expected by God, and it's good for our children. It's right. Along these same lines, obedience should not just be expected in your home, but your children should be expected to obey all those that are in authority. So this is a separate issue here, but when you leave your children with somebody, you should be giving them all the authority to deal with your children. Otherwise, why are you putting them in their care? If you don't trust them to care for your child, why do you leave them with them? So when you drop them off at Grandma and Grandpa's, do Grandma and Grandpa know they can spank them? Do Grandma and Grandpa know they've got rules? And the kids are expected to obey Grandma and Grandpa's rules just like they're expected to obey your rules? If that's not something that you and your parents have talked about, and if they don't know, that's not a good situation. Grandma and Grandpa should know they trust us enough to care for this child, and we're going to care for him just like he's ours. Same way we cared for you, we're going to care for this grandchild. So there should be that type of expectation that you are going to care for that child as if he's your own, in love and discipline when necessary. Because discipline is love. So, again, that teaches our children to obey all those in authority. And you've put them in their authority, and they should obey. All right. The other part of this here is, he says here, what's the next thing that he says? He quotes here, honor your father and mother. What does that mean? What does this word honor mean? Honor is to love, to regard highly, to show a spirit of respect and consideration. It also has to do with reverence. And so, it is different than obedience. And when I think of honoring my father and mother, again, this is something that hopefully begins as they grow older, while they're in the home. But this is something that continues on for the rest of your life. You should be honoring your father and mother. So all of us are children. Some of us don't have our parents with us anymore. But even though I'm outside of my father's authority, I am no longer in his home, and I have my own family and all of that, I am still expected. God still expects me to honor my father and mother, to respect them, to love them. It's a difficult thing when they're unbelievers, and so I want to say a few words about that. It doesn't mean that we no longer have to honor our parents if our parents are unbelievers, but it is a different relationship there. There still is a need to honor them. And as we honor them, as we show them respect and love and so on, hopefully we are showing them the love of Christ, how Christ has loved us. And we're loving you because Christ loves us. Christ commands us to love you and to honor you, to show you respect. It is a different relationship, though. I'm not going to go to an unconverted parent and ask for biblical, godly counsel, right? That would be silly. That doesn't mean I can't go to them and ask counsel, right? I remember Bob Jennings talking about his dad, that his dad was an unbeliever, but he could go to him and he could ask him counsel. And he did. Bob said he had some good counsel for him when he went to him. Again, it was, I forget what exactly it was that Bob had been talking about, but he went to his dad and said, what do you think about this? And his dad gave him good counsel. Again, his dad loved him. He wanted what was best for him. And he gave him good advice, good counsel. And so we can still show our parents honor and respect in that way, even if they are unconverted. It's just not as easy, necessarily. And you have to weigh it a little bit more. But we can show in that way, and it's a good thing. It's a good thing to show honor in that way. So, honor our mother and father throughout our lives. What are a couple of ways here that I wrote down how we can do this, how we can honor them? By listening to them and hearing them. All right? Surely, we've all experienced mom and dad saying things as we've had conversations, giving their opinion. Listen to them. Hear what they have to say. Don't be dismissive of them. Oh, you've got nothing to say. You're an old fuddy-duddy. You're living back in the Stone Age. Or whatever. Don't be dismissive. Listen. Hear. Consider what they've got to say. That's honoring them. Showing respect in that way. Asking for counsel. That's another way that we show honor and respect for our parents. Asking counsel. Asking what they think about a certain decision we're trying to make. So on. That's a way that we can show honor and respect. That we can show them that we care for them and we value them. Already mentioned unconverted people there. Having an attitude of respect. That's important. That's vital. If you're going to honor your mother and father, you have got to show an attitude of respect. You must have an attitude of respect for them. How about even thankfulness towards them for all that they've done for you, your whole upbringing, the love, the care, the concern that they've showed you. Honoring your father and mother also involves not holding a grudge against ways that they failed you. I know that I have failed my children. I know that I have not been a perfect father. I know that my father was not perfect. But I have forgiven him for all of those things. I know that he didn't do anything out of malice or anything else. I know he loved me. He cared for me, provided for me, all of those things. And so to hold on to any grudge, any bitterness, is not showing honor and love for your parents. So forgiving them, moving on, honoring them in that way. Thinking and assuming the best of them. And I guess the flip side of that would be not being degrading and looking down upon them. So these are a few ways where we can honor our parents, where we can show them love and respect in a way that is honoring unto the Lord. I think this honoring also includes physical help for our parents. If you remember, we read this a few weeks ago, but in Timothy here, 1 Timothy 5:3, it's the same word. It says, honor widows who are widows indeed. And then he goes on to talk about widows. And the honor there has to do with caring for them physically, taking care of them. And it's that same word that's used here. It includes that. And so I think there's also a responsibility in that regard, in honoring our parents. Another passage here is in Mark that I wanted to read. Here, Mark 7:9. So Jesus here is rebuking the Pharisees. He says in 6 and 7, they honor me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. Calls them hypocrites earlier. But in vain do they worship me, teaching as doctrines the precepts of men, neglecting the commandments of God. You hold to the traditions of men. And then he says, you are experts at setting aside the commandment of God in order to keep your tradition. For Moses said, honor your father and your mother, and he who speaks evil of father or mother is to be put to death. But you say, if a man says to his father or his mother, whatever I have that would help you is Corban, that is to say, given to God, you no longer permit him to do anything for his father and his mother, thus invalidating the word of God by your traditions, which you have handed down, and you do many things such as that. And so Jesus is telling them, Moses said, honor your father and mother. And part of that is caring for them. But the Pharisees said, if you make this vow that all that you have is given to God, then you no longer have to help your parents. You don't have to give it to God, but it's given to God. I'm going to keep it. and give it to God. But again, there were both sides could be there, that you would give it to God and then you didn't have to help your parents, or you could say it's devoted to God and then you didn't have to give it to your parents, but you could use it however. And so Jesus there is saying, you totally dishonor God by neglecting His commandments to honor your father and your mother. So there seems to be, clearly, from Jesus' standpoint, a responsibility on the part of children to care for their father and mother. That is one way that we honor them. As they grow older, as they need help, maybe it's financial, work around the house, whatever it is, we have a responsibility to honor them and to help them in those ways. And so that is part of this honoring our father and mother, is making sure that they are cared for, making sure that their needs are met. All right. I want to encourage all of you children that are still at home to be content where you are. Don't be desiring to just get out there, to be on your own, to do your own thing. Be content where the Lord has put you. Be content under the authority of your parents. It's a safe place. It's a good place. It's a place of love and care. And part of the Christian life is a life of contentment. So if you're a believer and you're at home, be content. Don't be just chomping at the bit to get out and be on your own. Obviously, if the Lord leads, so be it. But don't just desire to get out just to get out. Be content where the Lord has you. If you're unconverted, there's no better place than the safety of your home, where you have rules, where you have responsibility, where mom and dad love you, where you're cared for. It's a good place to be. It's a safe place to be. It's a God-ordained place to be. And so be content there. And then, along these same lines, I was thinking of singleness. So, children grow up, maybe they're still home and they're single, maybe they move out finally. And maybe not finally, but they move out, whatever. Maybe they go to college, maybe they just, think it's time to have a place of their own, and so be it. That's not a bad place to be single. All right, and so I want to encourage all of you who are single to be content where the Lord has you. That is also a good place to be. There's nothing wrong with it. I also want to encourage you to use that, as Paul said. 1 Corinthians 7. Should we read it? 1 Corinthians 7, 32 through 35. But I want you to be free from concern. One who is unmarried is concerned about the things of the Lord, how he may please the Lord. But one who is married is concerned about the things of the world, how he may please his wife, and his interests are divided. The woman who is unmarried and the virgin is concerned about the things of the Lord, that she may be holy both in body and spirit. But one who is married is concerned about the things of the world, how she may please her husband. Goes on then. What is Paul's point in all of that? Either one is fine, but he says use your singleness for good. Use your singleness to serve the Lord. Devote yourself to the Lord while you're able to, because there will come a time where you won't have that type of freedom. You won't be able to do what you're able to do as a single person. And so be content where the Lord has you and pursue Him. Minister to the church. Minister to the needs of the needy. Minister to the lost. Be able to devote more of your time in the Word and in prayer. And so I just want to encourage you to be content. That doesn't mean you can't pray for a spouse and desire a spouse and ask the Lord to bring you a spouse. But use this time for good in your own life and to minister to the church, and also in preparation for a wife or a husband. That you would be ready when the time comes when the Lord would give a spouse to you. I don't know if I need to say this or not, but I will. Singleness is not a lesser thing than the married couples. So it's not like you have this hierarchy of, the married couples are really godly folks, and then you got these singles down here that never really figured it out, and the Lord hasn't blessed, or any of that nonsense. We all are valuable to the church, to one another, to the body, and obviously in the eyes of the Lord. And so singleness is not a lesser calling than marriage. I mean, you can look throughout church history. I was just thinking about it. The Lord has used single people abundantly. I was reminded of Gladys Aylward and all of the work that she did in China. I'm reading about Amy Carmichael and all that she did in India. I've already mentioned him, but Bruce Olson, he was planned on being married at one point, but his fiancée died, but he never was married and was used mightily by God there in South America. And so singleness is not this lesser thing where you can't be used by God and you can't minister to the church and all of these other things. It's a great blessing as the Lord has given it to you. So use it and be encouraged in it. Be content in it and wait on the Lord if you desire a spouse. But use your time wisely. Use your time for good. For you really young people who are still single, use this time for growth, for maturity. Develop good habits, good responsible habits. Develop a hard work ethic. Develop patterns now that will pay dividends when you do get married, or if you do get married, but will also be beneficial just in life. And so use your singleness now for good. Be content where the Lord has you, and minister to the church, to your family, to the community, however the Lord would burden you in that way. Well, I guess that's it. That's all I've got.